Keiko's school is down to just Jake, Nog, and a lot of empty chairs. 3 Covarian freighter captains all want to use the same docking port, and Bashir has his plomik soup, hot, with a touch of basil. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 7th Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello. With a touch of basil, huh?
Yeah, did you notice that? He said, I'll have, he says, plomik soup, hot, and with a touch of basil. What he said.
I didn't pick up on that, but I just did.
I always do.
I like this episode.
Freak. Yeah. It was a good one. Today we are reviewing Season 3, Episode 3, The House of Quark. The House of Quark. Directed by your buddy, Mr. Les Landau. Teleplay by Ronald D. Moore. Yeah. So you liked it, huh?
Yeah, I thought it was a fun episode. I always like watching Quark do his thing, and this particular one, he really got to do his thing.
Yeah. It really showcased him a lot. And before we kind of take it step by step, one of the things that I noticed I wanted to make sure to mention is something Star Trek is good at is when they'll create an episode that's like an O'Brien-centric episode or a Quark-centric episode where they have to go on a different planet, like when O'Brien was captured by the Cardassians recently, the Cardis. And there's always that point where we go, it's going to be a boring episode because it's just O'Brien and a bunch of Cardis, or it's just Quark and the Klingons. But Star Trek always finds a way to sneak in one or two more of the main characters in there to make it more interesting. Like when O'Brien was captured by the Cardassians, they were able to bring in Odo as his, lawyer or whatever. And then they also brought in Keiko a little bit. In this case, when Quark is over with the Klingons, they still brought in Rom. So now he has somebody to confide in and talk to. And that's a really good screenwriting tool for us because it's hard for us to watch an episode that's just one character we know. We want more than that. And they're really good at bringing in a second or third character.
Yeah, and also keeping ongoing relationships, they keep feeding these relationships, which is great. This one, they did a little bit of the interplay between Sisko and Quark, and there was just a lot of interplay, and I like the relationships that are being developed. But this one was really good because it gets into Quark, and it shows Quark once again is such a dynamic character. He's not, one of the things that Star Trek really does a great job of is having these layered characters that have a whole lot of context to them. And Quark, is depicted as just, this money-hungry, cutthroat type of do anything to make his business run person, which he is. But then we get to see other sides of him, too, where he actually shows that he has a heart or that he's sympathetic to other people or, that he's willing to compromise his own financial security for the benefit of somebody else or something else. Sometimes with coercion, but actually usually with coercion. But still, at the end of the day, he ends up doing the right thing. So you have to give it to Quark for that.
Speaking of which, I'm wearing my special Quark's shirt in honor of a Quark-centric episode. Got this at the Star Trek Experience in Las Vegas at the Hilton. For those of you that have been there, you remember that shop. Everybody remembers this shop with the Quark shirts and the Quark shot glasses and whatever it was. Everything was overpriced. Big surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good little experience, though. Actually, that ride was cool.
Yeah, both of them.
And the gift shop / Quark's bar was really another feature that was awesome. I like how this episode starts. Rule of Acquisition 286. When Morn leaves, it's all over.
Yeah, but
and I like
but then he said that wasn't even, but then Rom says, that's not a rule of acquisition, brother. You know, he's like, well, it should be or whatever, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it should be. But I like that one. He made up a rule of acquisition and then said, when Moore leaves, it's all over. I mean, like, that's my best customer there. He sits here and drinks no matter what's going on. But if he's done,
that was actually one of the trivioids that I had was Quark makes up a new rule of acquisition or something like that. But it didn't make the cut. Sorry to say. I know.
Yeah, then they did a little bit of cliché-ish thing. When Quark kills the Klingon, he reaches down and he grabs the blood, and you can see the blood is actually in his hands. So they wanted to put blood on his hands, and it was more of just fulfilling that metaphoric kind of like, okay, this is what he's dealing with. But I love the lines in this episode. There was a time when Quark said, I should have stuck with insurance, better hours, more money, and less scruples.
Less scruples.
I like that line as well.
Of all people, he should have no scruples, or it seems like he would have none.
But he's looking for less.
We also, by the way, had... Okay. We also, by the way, had 3 NAMs. I don't know if you noticed the 3 NAMs that we had.
Okay, so I noticed 2 of the NAMs. Actually, there were 3 NAMs that I can remember. The Jake NAM, right? The Nog NAM, and then the Molly.
Yep.
So is Molly the other one?
Perfect. Yep, exactly. That's kind of like our 3 top NAM getters right there, Jake, Nog, and Molly right there, the kids.
Yeah. So we got a little chance to do the NAMs for this one.
There was also a 4th one. There was also a 4th NAM, but I don't feel like we should count that one anymore, the Dominion. Because I'm like, that one's just going to be talked about every episode for the next 5 seasons. So I don't know if we really need to be counting that one anymore. That one and Curzon. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, Curzon's been getting a lot, and you're right. We haven't actually kept track of all the Curzons, but this is the second time we mentioned a Curzon NAM.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, something that's going to keep popping up, right?
Yeah, that's why
Every time he says, I miss the old man.
That's why I feel like the Curzon NAMs and the Dominion NAMs, maybe we don't need to count those. I don't know. But I will say that Molly now has 4. Rom has 5. Keiko has 5. Jake has 5. And Nog has 7.
So Nog is leading. He's leading the NAM, the non-appearance mention category.
He's leading the pack.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
So.
Yeah, man. There's a bunch of little lines in here. I mean, when you get an episode like this, you kind of have to hold on to the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it is exposed in the dialogue, and one of the things that was said was, I like Quark when he said, it's not about profit, it's about revenge. And Rom's like, it is? I just love their interplay between the two.
Yeah.
I thought it was all about profit with you. So the interplay is really good. But, one thing that I picked up on about this episode, aside from the main in-your-face story about Quark killing a Klingon and taking credit for it so he can boost his sales, there was kind of an undertone in this episode, and it dealt for me with women's issues.
Mm.
And I felt like the women's issues that were being talked about was O'Brien's household, right, with Keiko and her trying to find her identity as, she's not a housewife. she's not good at just sitting at home and, taking care of the kids and doing house stuff. She wants to have her own identity. She wants to be in the workforce, right? And so that's one issue. Just women in the workforce, women having their own identity outside of the traditional, women's roles, taking care of the house type stereotype. So I thought they addressed that in this. They also addressed it with the main story with Quark and, the
Grilka.
Kozak's wife.
Yeah, Grilka.
Widow, right? Grilka.
Mm-hmm.
And Grilka had her own woman's issue, right? She's trying to maintain her household. She's trying to hold on to her identity as a widow and, secure her family's wealth. But it was still about a woman, Now she's a widow and she's having to deal with being a single woman and facing those kinds of challenges. So I thought a lot of the storyline in this episode really was talking about traditional roles that women play and how they are outside of that and more than
that. You're absolutely right about that. That's a really good point. It really was delivered very well on both storylines, right? I mean, you've got, like you said, you've got Keiko, who's kind of like, what is she going to do? She's just going to sit around at home and rot. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. She wants to be fulfilled. She studied to be a botanist, and she doesn't want to just get thrown little breadcrumbs here or there to keep her satisfied. She wants life fulfillment. And she and every single person on the planet deserves the pursuit of happiness, right? And also with Grilka,
right.
which was kind of a different angle of, the women's struggle. With Grilka, she's basically like powerless to keep her own house. Suddenly her husband dies and she's going to lose her entire house. But she being, intelligent, strong, perseverant, I don't even know, is perseverant a word? Feels like it should be. She figures out a way. How she can keep her house, even though she shouldn't have to figure it out. It should just be hers. But she takes control. She kidnaps Quark. She brings him over. She says, "This is what you're going to do. By the way, I'm going to kiss you, and then I'm going to gag and spit and hack because you're a gross Ferengi." Or the line when she says, something for and she stops. She's like, "A Ferengi?" And she's like, "Yeah." But yeah, you're right. That's a great point.
Yeah. Yeah, and Grilka also, both cultures, whether you're talking about the humanoid culture, the Star Trek, Starfleet personnel, we're still dealing with a patriarch society.
Right.
We're still dealing with a male-dominated society, and when you see it in the Klingons, you see it even more so, right? The Klingons are all macho, and it's a masculine fest, and she has to find her own voice amongst these really strong men that are super opinionated and willing to cut your head off. So I thought it was a good way to they subtly interjected this storyline about these kinds of struggles that women go through about trying to have their own identity, and the struggles that they face with, trying to break the narrative of whatever it is that is forced upon them as far as culturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it definitely does paint the Klingons in the light of, they're kind of brutes. The one dude was, passed out drunk Kozak. He falls on a knife. I did find it a little peculiar that falling on a knife pierces his armor. I mean, he's wearing battle armor that's supposed to protect him from swords and batleths, and him just dropping to the floor completely pierces that armor, kills him by piercing his organs, even though they have a double set of all organs so that they're not easily killed. That part was it didn't really work for me, but we get it. It was good for the story. It worked for the story because, now Quark is kind of almost framed in a sense. and put in this strange position. And then, as you were pointing out, Grilka then has to deal with, this patriarchal society that says, hey, you lost your husband, so therefore you can't keep your house. And some other dude that you hate is going to come take all your stuff, right? Gakor or something? What was his name?
Right. Yes.
Dagor.
Yeah. Al Dagor.
Hey, that's a good one. Al Dagor.
There you go. It took you a while. Maybe that. And,
like
there was also another line that I like Sisko said. You like that one, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm writing it down. I'm going to steal it.
Sisko
Nobody's going to know.
A really good line. When O'Brien confides into Sisko, I like that moment too. It reminded Sisko of his own, life decision of being stuck on this station and having to juggle raising a family on DS9. Mm-hmm. And he really had a lot of empathy for O'Brien and his situation with his wife. And one of the things that he says in this episode, which I really thought it was great, one of the things that, I wrote down, he said, nothing is harder than knowing the one you love is unhappy.
Right. That's a good one.
And, I thought that was a great, I love that point that he was making. And that is hard for us, when you're in love with somebody and you're sharing that common bond and you know that they're unhappy. It'll leave you unnerved and you will not feel settled. So I thought that was a great point that Sisko brought up and kind of endeared himself to O'Brien.
Yeah, you're right. That entire scene was just about happiness. They mentioned that. He also said, hey, if giving you Cargo Bay 21 is all it takes to make your wife happy, then of course we'll do it. That whole scene was about happiness. And then,
right.
and O'Brien says something like, so is that a yes? And Sisko says, well, it sure
right.
sounds like it. What does he say? He says, so you're saying yes? Right. He says, well, it sounds like it to
that.
me.
Yeah, and that was good. I mean, that was another little moment there between the crew that I liked to show that they care about each other, and they want to see the best for each other. It showed a little bit of sensitivity on Sisko's part, I thought.
I thought it was great, yeah.
Feel that way. Yeah. I also liked the moment, and it was a very small moment, but it was a moment where O'Brien comes to talk to Sisko and confide in him about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees that Kira and Dax are in the room. And he kind of says, I wanted to talk to Sisko, but it was private. And I like Dax's line. She's like, oh, wife problems. Like right away hits it right the nail on the head. Right?
Yeah.
And then she gives her explanation like, yeah, I've seen that face from both sides. I was the husband
right.
and that was the wife. So let's leave. Yeah, and Sisko does a really good job of banging on Kira in that moment, right?
What are we
Kira's
talking about?
I'm not going to leave. Something. Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember that.
Like, that must be a human thing or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, so she didn't want to give the privacy to O'Brien and Sisko. Remember, Kira was going to sit there.
Yeah.
It was a small scene. It happened fast. So O'Brien comes. I want to talk to you, Captain, Commander, and Kira's literally going to just ignore it. The request to have a private conversation and just keep sitting there. And the way that Sisko tells Kira, like, I need you to get the hell out of here right now because we're going to be talking. It was a nice little moment of like flexing his authority.
Yeah, go scan something. go find something to do. I gotta help this poor guy.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about it on your way to the wherever you gotta go right
now? Yeah. Now we've got about a minute left in this this first segment here. Yeah. I mean, I did notice. I wasn't sure if we were going to see Molly or if she was just going to be mentioned, but we didn't end up seeing her. I guess she's just always sleeping in her room every time. Every time Chief O'Brien comes home, I guess she's just always sleeping, right? I don't know, but we sure didn't see her.
Yeah, she's either sleeping at her friend's house.
Yeah. Oh, what is it that Molly likes the Petersons better than she likes her own parents? Remember that episode?
Yeah, exactly.
That must be it. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to do the trivioids that didn't make the cut, and we will finish this review, and we will be right back on the 7th Rule.